Welcome to the debate. So picture this. It is the 85th minute of a tied cup final, right? The rain is pouring down.
The absolute classic scenario.
Exactly. Now, a traditional manager, they used to just look out at the pitch, watch their star midfielder laboring back on defense, and essentially ask their gut if that player was simply too tired to continue.
Right, relying purely on that veteran instinct.
But today, an algorithm on a tablet is buzzing on the bench. It's alerting the coaching staff that the midfielder's deceleration force has dropped by exactly 4.5% and a hamstring tear is statistically imminent.
Which forces an incredibly tough choice.
Right. Do you pull your star player in the most crucial moment of the season, or do you trust their human spirit to push through?
And that right there is a terrifyingly real scenario for modern clubs. You are looking at a fundamental clash of philosophies. On one side, you have this cold computational overlay of the game, and on the other, you have a sport born on the streets, driven by human emotion and unpredictable momentum.
Yeah, precisely. And that scenario really gets right to the heart of the core tension we are exploring today, drawing from the latest analyses of AI's integration into world football strategy.
We are looking specifically at this massive influx of live tracking data.
Right. We're talking about optical systems capturing player coordinates 25 to 50 times per second, data that dictates real-time substitutions and highly complex tactical shifts.
And we both have very different takes on this.
We do. My perspective is that this technology represents an absolute necessary evolution. Artificial intelligence serves as an objective, intellectual force multiplier that strips away the inherent guesswork of human management. It offers absolute mathematical clarity.
Well, I come at it from a very different way. Tracking data is undeniably a fascinating tool, yes. The analytical preparation it allows is staggering. But professional football is not played on a spreadsheet.
Let me just frame this. I am looking at this from the perspective of the veteran tactician, the old school manager who understands that there is a hard boundary here, which the source material puts perfectly. AI advises, but humans decide. When you treat this sport purely as a mathematical exercise, you dangerously ignore dressing room dynamics, player egos, and that unquantifiable psychological resilience. Okay, well, let's unpack that computational overlay first, because I think it is really important to understand exactly what the traditional coach is up against now. We aren't just talking about a basic heat map anymore, right?
No, not at all.
Modern stadiums are equipped with incredibly advanced computer vision systems. They capture the precise X, Y, and Z coordinates of all 22 players, plus the ball, up to 50 times per second.
Which is just a staggering amount of data.
It is. And what that does is create a live, digital twin of the match as it is actually happening.
Right. It is basically rendering a highly chaotic physical event into this massive stream of geometry and velocity data.
Yes, exactly. And the algorithms use that data to calculate a metric called pitch control.
Pitch control.
Yeah. If you are wondering what pitch control actually looks like, imagine the field divided into shifting zones of influence. Millisecond by millisecond, the AI calculates which team dominates which specific patch of grass.
Based on what? Player speed and momentum?
Speed, structural positioning, momentum, all of it. So instead of a manager reacting to a conceded goal, the model is simulating the next phases of play. It alerts the bench to a high probability passing lane the opponent is about to exploit.
Right.
It calculates optimized pressing triggers, identifying the exact physical coordinates and body orientations where an opposing defender is statistically most likely to turn the ball over.
Sure, but, and this is a big but, creating a virtual simulation of the pitch is fundamentally different from managing the human beings actually standing on it.
How so?
Well, you can calculate pitch control down to the millimeter, right? But a digital overlay cannot replicate the soul of the sport, the human element.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it a bit differently. When people talk about the soul of the sport or, managerial instinct, I often think that is just a romanticized term for cognitive bias.
Cognitive bias, wow.
Yeah, the irrationality of the human element you were talking about is exactly why we need objective systems in the first place.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why.
Okay, go ahead.
The old school manager isn't operating on cognitive bias. They're operating on deep, visceral context. Let's go back to your opening scenario, right? The 85th minute substitution.
The 4.5% drop.
Drop in deceleration force. A machine flags that player for a substitution based on a drop in mechanical output. And you see that as objective perfection.
Because it is objective.
But that machine cannot navigate the complex politics of pulling a star player. It doesn't know if that striker needs to play through a bad patch of form to regain their confidence for the rest of the season.
But if we look closely at that mechanical output, the precision is exactly what saves the team's season. Look, historically, injury management was entirely reactive.
Sure.
A manager asks a player if they are tired or they watch for a slight limp. By the time you see the limp, the damage is already done.
That is true.
Today, through GPS vests and biometric sensors, AI processes millions of physical data points in real time. We're talking about total distance covered, high-intensity deceleration, metabolic power.
Even their sleep quality from the night before, yeah?
Exactly.
Which I agree is incredible for sports science and recovery planning the day after a match.
But it's vital during the match. When the system flags that 4.5% drop in mechanical output, we aren't just talking about a player looking a bit sluggish.
Right.
The system is measuring the exact force of their decelerations. It is seeing the micro tears happening in the hamstring every single time they hit the brakes.
It's detecting the physical breakdown.
Yes. The AI detects that their heart rate recovery time between sprints has slowed to a critical threshold, making a real-time substitution based on that exact objective tracking data averts a catastrophic injury. A human manager, no matter how experienced, simply cannot see a 4.5% drop in force with the naked eye.
But you are isolating the physical from the mental. And on a football pitch, the two are inextricably linked.
Are they, though, when it comes to injury?
Absolutely. Relying so heavily on purely physical workload metrics for a real-time substitution fundamentally misunderstands the context of a live match. Yes, the machine sees the micro tears, it sees the slowed heart rate, but that metric doesn't account for human spirit. It doesn't account for adrenaline.
A fatigued muscle tears regardless of how much spirit the player has.
Not necessarily in the way a sterile model predicts, though. A veteran manager knows their players intrinsically.
In what sense?
They know if that specific, physically exhausted midfielder has the sheer willpower and the leadership to push through the pain barrier and deliver an unpredictable moment of creative genius.
But the risk?
Just think about the history of the sport. It is built on moments where a player running on absolute empty defies their physical limitations to score a last-minute game winner.
Sure, those make great stories.
It's not just stories, it's the reality of the game. If we allow algorithms measuring deceleration to automatically dictate real-time substitutions, we are systematically removing the opportunity for human transcendence on the pitch. The machine sees a deficit. The veteran tactician sees a player who simply refuses to lose.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective.
Okay?
You are building this entire argument on the premise that the psychological aspects of the game, that willpower, that refusal to lose you mentioned, are entirely unquantifiable.
Because they are.
But you are treating the mind as this mystical black box that only a human manager can understand. And the technology has already moved past purely physical metrics. We are now explicitly quantifying psychology.
Wait, you genuinely believe an AI can measure a player's mental fortitude?
I believe it can accurately measure the physiological and behavioral manifestations of it, yes.
How?
Let's look at the work being done by companies like Inside Out Analytics. They are utilizing advanced computer vision to analyze thousands of hours of match footage. But they aren't looking at the ball.
What are they looking at?
So they are what, trying to code the manager's intuition?
Exactly. The AI is observing how a player's body language changes in the 10 seconds immediately after conceding a goal or missing a crucial penalty.
Okay.
Does their head drop? Do they scream at a teammate? Does their tracking back speed decrease by 10%? It analyzes these behavioral patterns over hundreds of matches to build a highly accurate psychological profile.
It's building a profile, sure.
It effectively codes the very gut feeling that the traditional coach claims as their exclusive domain. It strips away the guesswork and replaces it with empirical behavioral patterns.
Okay, look, it is a highly sophisticated approach, I will grant you that. But I have to push back strongly here, because tracking a micro-expression on a video feed is vastly different from the visceral reality of a dressing room at halftime when you are down 2-0.
Why is it different? It's data.
Because that video profiling is a simulated proxy for actual human connection.
But it is a proxy based on thousands of objective data points. A manager's human connection is based on their own subjective, often flawed, memory of how a player handles pressure.
Subjective, yes, but deeply contextual, and context is everything. A camera might register a grimace or dropped shoulders and flag the player for low frustration tolerance.
Right.
But a human manager might know that same player just received terrible personal news that morning, or maybe they're dealing with immense media scrutiny in their private life.
The AI doesn't read the tabloids, sure.
Exactly. And what that player actually needs is an armor on the shoulder, not to be mathematically downgraded on his tactical spreadsheet.
I mean, I guess.
An algorithm cannot step up to take a high-pressure penalty. It cannot replicate the dressing room leadership of a captain looking their teammates in the eye and demanding more. You can track gestures all you want, but reading a room and leading human beings requires a deeply human empathy that a computational overlay simply does not possess.
See, I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because it assumes the manager's empathy and intuition are usually correct.
They often are, at the elite level.
But the history of football is littered with managers who read the room completely wrong. Managers who alienated their captains or who let their own massive egos cloud their judgment.
Well, humans are flawed, yes.
But the AI doesn't have an ego. And that objectivity doesn't just stop at player profiling and substitutions. When you look at the most controlled moments of a chaotic game, that objective math becomes a lethal weapon for tactical optimization.
Ah, you were talking about the democratization of strategy?
Yes, and the leveling of the playing field. For a long time, only the absolute wealthiest clubs could afford the millions of dollars required to install specialized optical tracking cameras in their stadiums to get that high-resolution coordinate data.
Right, it was a massive competitive advantage for the top 1%.
But AI is completely democratizing this access now. Companies like Metrica Sports are using machine learning to extract hyper-accurate tracking data directly from standard TV broadcasts.
Wow, just from the TV feed?
Just from the broadcast. Now, a mid-table club with a fraction of the budget can analyze an opponent mathematically. And when we apply this to highly specific tactical situations, the results are undeniable.
The prime example being set pieces, I imagine.
Precisely. Set pieces, corner kicks, free kicks, they account for roughly 30 to 35% of all goals scored in modern tournaments.
It's a huge margin.
They are controlled, restarted moments of play. That makes them highly susceptible to mathematical optimization because the chaos of open play is momentarily paused. Look at Google DeepMind's collaboration with Liverpool FC to create Tactic AI.
Right.
This isn't just a database, it is a predictive engine. It analyzes thousands of historical corner kicks.
And it breaks down the geometric structure of the defense, right?
Exactly. It categorizes whether the defense is using a zonal marking system or man-to-man marking, and it runs massive simulations to find structural vulnerabilities.
So it's essentially predicting the future of that specific play.
Yeah. If you are a coach, you can look at the interface, adjust a player's starting position by literally just 2 yards on the screen, and the AI instantly recalculates the offensive probability of scoring based on those new coordinates.
That is wild.
It identifies exactly which defender is statistically most likely to lose their marker, given the flight path of the ball. When you have an algorithm mathematically proving the most efficient run pattern, drawing up a play on a whiteboard based on a manager's instinct becomes completely indefensible. It is like relying on a paper map when you have a GPS system recalculating traffic in real time.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered the broader risks when we expand these systems into the scouting and recruitment side of the sport?
Risks in scouting?
Yes, because this is where the danger of treating players purely as mathematical equations becomes really apparent to an old school manager. We are seeing the integration of generative AI and natural language tools into strategy now. Look at systems like Sevilla Scout Advisor, which is built on Meta's Llama architecture.
Which allows scouts to use plain English to query massive databases.
Right. For the listener who might not be familiar, Llama is a large language model capable of parsing and understanding decades of unstructured, written scouting reports.
It's brilliant.
It is. So a scout can just type into a prompt, "Find me a left-footed winger who plays like Lucas Ocampos, but is under 22. And the AI scans millions of words of text reports and data to instantly produce a short list.
Exactly.
Or you have FIFA's Football AI Pro, which automatically generates comprehensive tactical post-match reports without a human lifting a finger.
Which makes a club's operation exponentially more efficient. Instead of a scout standing in the rain with a notebook, you have instantaneous global data retrieval.
More efficient at data retrieval, absolutely, I won't argue that, but it risks reducing complex human athletes to mere data points and algorithmic clones.
Clones?
Yes. The AI might find a 19-year-old playing in South America. The data shows their progressive carries, meaning how effectively they run the ball forward into attacking areas, and their press resistance, their ability to keep the ball when surrounded by defenders, perfectly match a $100 million superstar in Europe.
Right, an absolute hidden gem.
On paper, on the digital twin, it is the perfect, mathematically optimized signing.
Because the underlying metrics prove their value.
But integrating that 19-year-old player into the specific tactical and human framework of a new club in a new country requires old-school managerial artistry.
But the AI can simulate how their specific passing profile fits the new tactical framework. It can mathematically prove they fit the system.
Tactically, perhaps. Culturally and psychologically, never. Can the large language model predict how that teenager will adapt to a new language?
Well, no, but can it predict how they will handle the intense pressure of the European media? Can it tell you if they have the mental grit to perform on a freezing, rainy, Tuesday night away match when they are homesick?
The
machine identifies the physical talent, yes, but the traditional manager has to build the human environment that allows that talent to thrive. You can have all the deep mind set piece probabilities in the world, but if the player taking the corner is entirely disconnected from the manager's philosophy because the relationship is purely transactional and data-driven, the math won't save you.
But without the math, you never find that undervalued 19-year-old in the first place.
Fair. You are stuck relying on the traditional regional bias of your existing human scouting network. AI strips away the biases that have plagued football management for decades.
It certainly casts a wider net.
It doesn't care about a player's media hype, it doesn't care about their agent's demands, and it doesn't favor a player just because the manager likes their attitude. It generates objective market values based strictly on underlying performance metrics.
I agree that it is a phenomenal discovery tool. The global database scanning is an undeniable advantage. But again, discovery is not management. Sourcing the ingredients is very different from cooking the meal.
I think that perfectly frames the broader implications of this shift as we look to wrap up.
Yeah, it really highlights the divide.
From my perspective, artificial intelligence is acting as the ultimate intellectual force multiplier in world football. By creating a live, high-resolution digital twin of the pitch, tracking player coordinates 50 times per second, and calculating real-time pitch control, it brings a level of objective, mathematical precision to the sport that human eyes simply can't achieve.
It certainly sees things we can't.
Exactly. It shifts medical strategies from reactive to proactive, preventing season-ending injuries by catching microscopic drops in deceleration force before a human even notices a limp. It democratizes elite tactical analysis, rendering the traditional reliance on guesswork and emotional blindness obsolete. In the ultra-competitive landscape of the modern game, strategy must be coded, not just drawn on a whiteboard.
And my perspective remains that while AI has completely and irreversibly transformed preparation, scouting, and post-match analysis, the ultimate deciding factor during the 90 minutes of a live match must remain the instinct and psychological mastery of the human manager.
The old school approach.
The deeply human approach. Football is an inherently chaotic, deeply emotional sport. An algorithm can run 10,000 simulations of a corner kick or advise that a player's physical output has dropped, but it cannot navigate dressing room politics.
True.
It cannot inspire an exhausted squad at halftime, and it cannot replicate the sheer, unpredictable genius of a creative playmaker acting on instinct. AI is an incredibly powerful advisory simulator, but humans must retain the power to decide.
It seems we have reached a fascinating point of convergence. Alongside our disagreement, though,
We have.
We both clearly agree that AI from global scouting databases leveraging natural language processing to broadcast video being transformed into highly accurate tracking data has irreversibly revolutionized how clubs prepare for and analyze the sport.
Absolutely. The democratization of this tracking data is changing the competitive landscape globally. The days of evaluating a player's worth solely by watching them from the stands with a notebook in the rain are gone.
thankfully.
And the analytical preparation across the sport is definitively better for it.
Yeah, we continue to respectfully disagree on the boundary of that integration.
The hard boundary.
Right. Specifically, whether a live, mathematical, digital twin of the pitch can or should ever override the traditional, instinctual decision-making of the veteran coach during the heat of a live match. Can a 4.5% drop in deceleration force truly outweigh the human spirit of a player refusing to give up?
And that is the exact tension that makes this technological evolution so captivating. The clubs that ultimately succeed will be the ones trying to find that impossible balance between the sterile precision of the math and the fiery reality of the human element.
It really is a remarkable synthesis of human artistry and machine intelligence happening right there on the touchline. Which brings us back to where we started. When you look at the modern manager standing on the edge of the pitch, looking out into the rain, are they looking at a chaotic, emotional canvas, or are they reading a high-resolution algorithmic scan?
Probably a bit of both now.
Exactly. There is so much more to explore in this evolving landscape of sports data, but we will leave it to you to decide who truly rules the modern pitch, the algorithm or the manager.